Hello and welcome to a special episode of Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie and I'm your host for today's show. Now the season concluded, I guess as Liverpool fans we can think ahead about next season and potential signings during the summer. So thankfully Liverpool were able to finish in the Champions League spot in third position, which was an amazing achievement considering the issues that we had over the course of the season. But before I start speaking about specific transfer targets, I'd like to highlight areas of the pitch that I feel like need to be strengthened this summer. So I think it goes without saying, centre-back position needs to be strengthened. Last season, we started with 3 centre-backs. After selling Lovren, we had Van Dijk, Gomez and Matip. So in hindsight, yes, we probably should have signed the 4th choice centre-back at the time, but I think finances didn't allow us to look for a quality target in that regards. So that was one of our downfalls last season. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough numbers, and therefore we had to look at players like Reece Williams, who was pretty much not ready. He'd just come back from a loan move from Kidminster the season before. Nathaniel Phillips was actually on the verge of leaving to join a championship club, so we were quite lucky to have him in the squad. And he's been fantastic for us over the course of the season. Kabak came on loan in January, so I'll speak about Kabak during the show later on. So, and we've had to have, God knows how many, I think it was 20 odd partnerships in central defence with Fabinho and Henderson going into those positions, which was never ideal. So for me, defence definitely has to be strengthened and midfield as well. So whenever Fabinho and Henderson were deployed as centre-backs, we lacked a physical presence in the middle of the park. And that's probably why we never got to see the best of Thiago. So I think not much from Liverpool fans, but a lot of other fans would, ridicule his form or say he doesn't score, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. But he wasn't able to play his game, unfortunately, because he had to play in a number 6, which I know he did for Bayern Munich, but in the Premier League, it's slightly different in terms of the intensity he had to play under. And then a stop-start season for him as well, where unfortunately he contracted COVID, and then he got injured against Everton, he was out for, I think, 3 months as well. So no, not a great start for Thiago in that regards, but I feel like that is still an area we need to strengthen, especially if Fabinho is not available. I think a defensive mid, a backup, or someone that can play in that position more comfortably than Henderson would be quite ideal in that regards. Creativity in the middle of the park. There were a number of games during the season where I feel like we just lacked that creative spark or someone to drive the ball forward and make something happen or take a long shot from distance. We just didn't have that kind of personnel in our squad whatsoever. So that's an area I'd like the team, or Klopp, I should say, to look into. I think it's an area that we can definitely improve on. And I feel like we've lacked an attacker with a killing instinct up front. We've got a fantastic player for Bobby Firmino, who does a great job for the team. But I feel like sometimes we need that number 9 who's a fox in the box and can finish half chances or around the 6-yard box. So those type of players aren't easy to find, unfortunately. But I feel like that is the type of player we should be in the market this summer. It will be tricky as it has been a COVID season where financially teams aren't up to it in terms of stretching to pay big transfer fees. So you may see a lot of swap deals this year. You may see more loan moves. Who knows, to be fair. It's a bit hard to predict at this stage, but yeah, there's a lot of work to do. So we can get on to each position. But before I do that, I can briefly say players or state players that I believe will possibly be leaving the club. So I think strong rumours of Adrian possibly moving back to Spain. So we may need a goalkeeper regarding that. The big topical one is centre-back. Matip, Kabak and Phillips, who stays, who goes. I'll elaborate on that later on in the show. Nico Williams for me, fantastic young player, but I feel like a loan move would be great for his development at this stage. But it's a tricky one because then we have to find a replacement for him. And that's an area where it's very difficult to find good squad players and players that are content with being backup because no one's going to displace Trent Alexander-Arnold in the lineup, let's be honest. So that's a tricky part in that regard. And then you've got more or less 3 injury-prone players in Keita, Ox, and Shaqiri. So it remains to be seen if they are moved on this year. But I feel like it is time for these players to be replaced in the squad. And Origi, for me, pretty much has been bit part player. Probably should have left last year, but wasn't to be, unfortunately. I don't think we were able to get a respectable offer from any club. So that's why he stayed with the club. Excuse me. So we can speak about goalkeepers, actually. So goalkeeper is a bit of a tricky one mainly because of Kelleher, to be fair, because I feel like he did fantastic whenever he was called upon last season. For such a young player, showed real maturity in his play, looked so comfortable on the ball in regards to crossing or with his feet, and good shot stopper as well. So for me, personally, I would have him as the number 2 for the squad next year. Now, there's been some rumours regarding Adrian, which I'm sure a lot of fans probably haven't been pleased to hear about, is that we've offered Adrian another contract extension. So I'll be honest, I'm not his biggest fan, but this might be a bit alarm bells for some fans here, but I wouldn't mind him staying for one more year. And there's a reason why I say that. It's because he wouldn't be second choice for me. He'd be third choice. So that gives Kelleher, let's say Alisson gets injured, for example. If Kelleher was to be in goal, we have an experienced head behind him. I wouldn't want our second choice goalkeeper and third choice goalkeeper to be 2 young up and coming players. For me, that's no good balance within the squad. So Alisson is undoubtedly number 1, and you've got young goalkeeper in Kelleher who would be fantastic as an understudy, and then a third goalkeeper who's who's there for experience. So I feel like Adrian can play that role for one more year. Not ideal, but at this stage, I feel like we need to be careful with our finances and probably use it where it's invested in the right areas of the squad, which I'm sure we can understand will be more towards midfield and attack. So we can see regarding that. But there's a few players that I've identified for the goalkeeping area. So if we were to go for an experienced one, I'm a big fan of Dubravka from Newcastle. He's pretty much been their second choice goalkeeper all season. Excuse me. And I feel like he's got Premier League experience, which would be fantastic for us. I believe he's around mid-30s now as well. So right age where he hasn't played for a big club, so having an opportunity to play for Liverpool would be a great opportunity for him. And I think he has the right credentials to be a backup goalkeeper at Liverpool. Great shot stopper, great in the air, and has a presence about him in the box, which was quite evident in our draw against Newcastle this season. I was very impressed with his performance there. So that would be someone I'd look at regarding the squad. Another player is Matt Ryan from Brighton. So I know he was on loan at Arsenal. Don't think he made any appearances, to be fair. But his style as a goalkeeper would suit us as well, as he's that traditional sweeper keeper where he's very good with his feet, great shot stopper, very agile as well, so makes good saves. So I think he would be another good option as well. And I don't think Dubravka or Matt Ryan would command a higher transfer fee. So those are the 2 targets that I feel like we should look into regarding Liverpool. Now, there's one target that I doubt will happen because of his alliance right now, is Romero from Manchester United. So he's actually available on a free transfer. I think he'd be a fantastic backup goalkeeper, but I just don't see that happening due to our rivalry. Even though he's pretty much a free agent now, there must be some discussion where you say you can't join a rival team. That always happens. So yeah, I don't see that happening at all. So those are the ones that I would target. I think that for me, that would be the criteria to find a goalkeeper that has experience and provide support for Alisson and Kelleher, rather than finding a young goalkeeper. So there has been talks that Kelleher might go out on loan. I feel like he's fantastic. I feel like he's got the quality to be number 2, maybe number 1 in the future as well. So I don't think a loan move would be useful. I think maybe playing him as an understudy to Alisson, where he can learn from him, would be very useful at this stage of his career. There are a couple other players that I've been quite impressed with. So Areola from Fulham, who's on loan from PSG, fantastic goalkeeper. Maybe too good to be a number 2. If Kelleher was to go on loan, let's just say that in the scenario that, let's say there was a decision that Kelleher has actually gone on loan, Areola would be a good one for me. And there's a Turkish goalkeeper we're linked with. That's called Kache, I think his name is. So I think he's number 2 in the Turkish national team. So I've seen a few clips. I haven't seen much of him, if I'm brutally honest. Looks like a good shot stopper, has a good presence in crossing, which is good, as you don't really see that much with foreign goalkeepers. Another young goalkeeper that I quite like the look of is Ramsdale from Sheffield United. So previously at Bournemouth. I feel like he's got good ability. Actually might even be in the England squad during the Euro. So he would be a good signing. But I feel like the club have a lot of faith in Kelleher, and I do as well as a fan. So I would probably, like I mentioned earlier, go for a third choice goalkeeper. I think that would be the route to go. So now on to defence. I've got a number of targets written down on my notepad here, but I think we've pretty much signed our centre-back. So strong rumours regarding Ibrahima Konate joining Liverpool, hopefully in the near future. I think next few days it might be confirmed officially. Signing on a 5-year contract, which is talk of the town right now. So for me, that's a fantastic signing. And I believe the fee is between 30 to 35 million, and it's a release clause as well. So fantastic young player. I don't think his talent is in question. It's more to do with his recent injury record, as he's had some major injuries recently that's kept him out of play for quite a while. So that's the concern. That's the gamble I guess we'll have to take. But in regards to his age and his ability, he's top tier. So his potential is pretty high, and he can be one of the top centre backs in world football in years to come. So 30, 40 million isn't a very large fee. So it is a big fee, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's a gamble worth taking. And if we're able to keep him fit and he plays consecutive games and does well for the team, we can't complain in that regard. So good thing with Ibrahima Konate would be that he wouldn't be under huge pressure to start straight away or perform, as we'll have Virgil van Dijk back, we'll have Gomez back as well, and hopefully we'll have Matip back in the lineup. So there won't be huge pressure for him to hit the ground running straight away. But he's definitely one where I feel like if he shows his true form, him and Van Dijk could form a formidable partnership, in my opinion. So exciting times. I think that's the right type of profile, right type of signing that Liverpool need for this summer. So fingers crossed we actually hear some official news, and it just puts the rumours to bed as well at the same time. I had quite a few players in line that I feel like would also have been good choices for Liverpool. So one player who's been, I think, forever linked since January is Botman, who's just won the French Championship with Lille. Good player, top player. For me, he would be a great signing, but I think because he's left-sided as well, I don't think Klopp would sign a player that takes up Van Dijk's position within the team. I know Van Dijk is right-footed and can play on the right side, but Van Dijk is comfortable playing in that left side of centre-back position, And that is the role he has been playing, I think, pretty much all his career. So a small detail that I think why we wouldn't consider him. There's another left-sided player, defender that I quite like is Pau Torres for Villarreal. So Villarreal just won the Europa League yesterday against Manchester United, and I feel like he showed his qualities during the game as well. Fantastic player. Reminds me of Daniel Aouar a little bit in terms of his ability, the way he dribbles with the ball and his cross-field passing. Similar kind of style to Aouar, who's one of my favourite centre-backs at Liverpool. So yeah, he's a top player. I think he would have commanded a big transfer fee. So maybe out of our sort of price bracket in regards to that. Another player was Konate, so heavily linked in January. I feel like we just missed out on signing him on the last day. I've actually seen him quite a few times. I feel like he's actually a good player. He would have actually been a great backup for Van Dijk as he plays left side in a centre-back position. But his ability on the ball is fantastic. He's got a great range of passing on him. Plays like a midfielder in terms of the level of passing that he does. So for me, I feel like that was something we lacked early on in the season when we had Phillips in the team, who looks fine now. I think he's improved his passing ability. But when he first started playing for the first team, he just didn't have that quality on the ball. And I felt like our opposition teams would try and take advantage by pressing high on him to ensure that he would make mistakes or make an error with his passing. So for me, he would have been a decent shout as well. Loic Bade, who plays for Lens, for me, he's an up-and-coming player. I rate him similarly in terms of high potential like Fofana. I feel like he's that type of player. Similar player in terms of they can both play left or right side of the centre-back position. Have great ball, great ability on the ball, really strong, really athletic, abundance of pace. So it'll be very difficult to outpace Bade off the ball. So for me, don't be surprised if you see like a Leicester or any team like that in the Premier League trying to sign him, because he's definitely one for the future. So a player I would have liked at Liverpool, but I think at this stage, you never know actually, because regarding Matip, there's no news in terms of how soon he'll be back from injury. So there's strong talks about Kabak possibly not getting a contract extension, or should I say his loan move will not be turned to a permanent deal. So my thoughts in that is a bit harsh on the player on a personal level, because I think he's always wanted to play for Liverpool and to play alongside his idol, which is Virgil van Dijk. So unfortunately, he will never get that chance to do that. But in football terms, he's done well. I wouldn't say he's been terrible or he hasn't been, or he's been amazing. I think he's done really well considering the circumstances where he was literally put in a deep end to save Liverpool's season, and shaky at times, but did a decent job, to be fair. So yeah, I think the fee was 18 million. So I think that's probably why Liverpool probably decided to save that 18 million and use it across for maybe another signing or potentially for another time. As you know, our policy is sell to buy. So I don't think that's a surprise, especially with FSG as our owners. But it is a shame. I think he has done well, but it's no surprise that we haven't extended, we haven't made his move into a permanent. But the big question is more so with Phillips and Matip. So this divides a lot of opinions. A lot of fans would like to keep Matip and sell Phillips as his value is increasing because of a great season he's had. Matip is the better player, and that's me being. I think there's no arguments there, to be fair. But this season has shown that we need players that are reliable when it comes to availability. And Matip, over the course of, I think, 2-3 years, has played very little amount of games. Me personally, I'd keep both. And I'd start the season with 5 centre-backs. I know last year we started with 3, I think we have to learn from our lessons and start with 5 centre backs. So it'll be Virgil van Dijk, Gomez. Hopefully, Konate is the new signing that we're after. Then you've got Matip, and then you've got Phillips. But I'll probably have Phillips as 4th choice due to his availability. But obviously, that can be decided upon who are playing and stuff. But I think that would be my 5 centre back choices. I always feel like it would be such a big gamble to go into a season with 4 centre backs, and with Konate's injury record not being the best as well. That's 4. Well, Van Dijk and Gomez aren't. Well, Van Dijk isn't injury prone. Gomez has had big injuries as well. So we've got 3 potential centre backs there who are known to get injured. And you've got Phillips, who's pretty much reliable there. But then we've got Ben Davies. I'm pretty honest, I have no idea if he'll be at the club next season or not. And then you've got youngsters like Reece Williams who can come in and comfortably play in the first team. A low move for him would actually probably be great for his development, in my opinion. But who knows? We'll see how that goes. But so in terms of centre backs, I feel like there's no point in me speaking about it too much because I feel like Konate is the guy that we're going for. And other players like Militao, who I'm a big fan of, Schurz from Ajax, who's a good player. Ben White, young British, centre back, who might be playing in the Euros actually. So Fofana would be a great sign. I'm a big fan of his, but I think that would command a big transfer fee. And Konsa from Aston Villa, for me, a big fan of his. Reminds me of Gomez in terms of his ability. Very strong, very athletic. And can play on the left side, on the right side. So would be good in terms of building partnerships with different centre-backs within the squad. There were strong rumours over the course of the season for Alaba. For me, that was never a move that I believe Liverpool were ever concrete regarding making it happen. And Varane, for me, that was unrealistic as well in that regard. So in regards to defense, I think Konate is the guy that we're going to go for. So that's a bit more clear cut there. So let's move on to midfield. So this is where it gets a bit tricky for me because we've got Gini Wijnaldum, who's unfortunately left the club now. So we need a replacement for him. But we've also got 2 players in the squad in Ox and Naby Keita that have been injury prone during their time at the club. So the big question is, would we sell Ox, Naby, or maybe even sell both to try and accommodate potentially 1 or 2 new midfielders into the squad? For me, I can see Ox staying at the club, and that's probably due to his versatility. Klopp, I think you probably noticed in the last 5-10 games, Klopp tends to play for Oxlade-Chamberlain quite a bit. He scored against Burnley the other day, brought him on later on in the second half. So I think he's one of his favourites. I guess every manager has their favourites, isn't it? So I can see him staying unless there was a big transfer fee bid from maybe like a Leicester or West Ham, which has been strongly linked with. That might sway us selling Ox, but it would have to come from Oxlade-Chamberlain, where he's stated that he'd like to leave. But I don't see that happening, if I'm brutally honest. Naby Keita, this is a sort of undivided opinion here because for me, I've lost faith and patience with Naby Keita. He's been at the club for 3-4 years now, and it just hasn't worked out, unfortunately. It's not really got nothing to do with his ability. It's more to do with his availability. You can't rely on him at all. He was under a special regime to gain fitness in the second half of the season, but we'd hear that he's close to being injured, and then following day, he's not available. He'll be back in a few weeks, and then when those few weeks happen, it's like back and forth. Like you just never get to see the guy on the pitch. So I feel like it's probably best for both parties to go separate ways, and he would still be an asset to a number of teams. It's just that maybe at Liverpool, the level of intensity that we have in our play and also in training as well is probably too much for his body to cope with. So I feel like a move back to Germany would suit him, maybe even France or Spain, where the pace is a little bit slower in comparison to the Premier League, would be a great fit for him. So I know he's been linked to a move to Atletico. That'd be a good move for him. Or move back to Leipzig. Who knows? So for me, if I was Liverpool manager, I would sell Naby Keita this season. And there's a number of targets that we can look into. So let's speak more about Gini Wijnaldum's replacement. So I think the popular choice right now is Bissouma. And I wouldn't go past that if I'm honest with you. I think Bissouma can play as a defensive midfielder, can play box to box. Very tall player with great physical presence. Something that's probably not highlighted that much. He's actually very good with his dribbling. Great first touch, likes to dribble, and scores a few crackers as well. So that's an area that I feel like Liverpool don't utilize that much, is long distance shooting. So that would be fantastic for us, where we've got a player that can do that as well. So for me, Bissouma would be a great signing because I feel like he would cover Gini Wijnaldum's position, but also Naby Keita, because Naby Keita is actually brought in to be the player where he'll have the ball and then he'll have that burst of energy and then start dribbling. And then Bissouma does that. He does have those traits. So for me, it's like signing two players in one day. So Bissouma would be the number one target regarding that position. I think at this stage, the transfer fee is the question mark. I think Liverpool are only willing to pay up to 30 million, so which I believe is probably the right valuation, if I'm honest. So remains to be seen if Liverpool can agree a deal with Brighton. I'm sure there'll be other interested parties. So he's been linked to Arsenal, which I've heard he's actually a fan of Arsenal Football Club. So I don't know if that goes to his favour in that regards. Manchester United have been linked to him strongly over the course of the season, and Man City as well. So he's definitely going to have some suitors for the summer. But I feel like if Liverpool want him, we can. I'm hoping we can try to sign him. So that is a player I do see joining the club. To be honest with you, there are other players that play that similar role. So you've got Zakaria, Dennis Zakaria. So he plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany. But I feel like he's strongly linked to Man City. So don't be surprised if you see him in the summer. Ruben Neves has been linked recently. I do like him as a player. Can play as a deep playmaker. Can play box to box as well. But I feel like there's better players out there, if I'm honest with you. So I don't think that's the one for Liverpool this year. And Calvin Phillips, who I'm a big fan of, but I think he's better suited as a defensive mid, where I feel like if you're in our midfield, you need to have that versatility where you can do a bit above. But if we were linked to him, I wouldn't be disappointed because I do rate him. I feel like he's got fantastic ball playing ability, and he's still quite young, so he has a lot of time to develop. So you never know. But if we're looking at players in the Premier League, if it was my choice, I'd go for Tielemans. I'm a big fan of his. He can play as a number 8. If required, can play as a number 6 as well. Has great passing ability and shooting ability, which was evident in the FA Cup final. Scored a very Gerrard-esque type of goal there to win it for Leicester City. So I feel like he would be a great signing. Only concern would be his transfer fee. I believe he was signed for 30 odd million. So Leicester would definitely want 50, 60 million. So it's a big of a steep in terms of transfer fees, but that would be the type of player I'd like to sign. But it's a tricky one. That is Tillemans a 50 to 60 million type of player? I don't know, but in terms of what he offers to the team, I think he'd be a great addition. So we'll see how that goes regarding that. But there are some other players that are quite interesting. So Newhouse, who also plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach, is an interesting one because he's a player. He's pretty much like Gini, where he controls the midfield, but he's a playmaker as well. So he can play in a deeper position, can play box to box, and actually has played as a number 10 as well. So he would be a very interesting signing for me because he wouldn't be your typical midfielder where he's dribbling past 2-3 players and making those attacking runs. He's more of a creative player, more of a passer, but can score goals as well. So I feel like the way our midfield is set up, he might actually be very suited in terms of how he plays. So if I was to make a prediction, I can. If Naby Keita was to leave, I'd probably go for Newhouse. If I'm honest with you, I feel like he's definitely suits the style of play that we play, and I think he would definitely offer something where we have lacked, which I mentioned earlier on, is creativity in the middle of the park. So Thiago we've got there as well. So having Newhouse as well would be fantastic. Then you've got the industrial play or destroyer in Bissouma. So you got two types of players there that can do two jobs. So add a good balance to the squad. So for me, those two would be the targets that I'd go for. But as I mentioned earlier on, Liverpool might go for a different tactic or strategy altogether. So they might actually go for a player that is more attack-minded. So I'm speaking of players like Aouar from Lyon, who's available for 25 minutes. In terms of transfer fee, that's pretty much peanuts in this day and age. For me, I'm a big fan of his. Great player, can play as a centre midfielder, as a number 10, and can also play on the left. He reminds me of Coutinho, actually. So if you wanted to bring back a player like Coutinho, for me, Aouar would be that guy. And you've got DePaul in Udinese as well, who is similar as well in terms of that regards. DePaul probably has more experience as he's played in La Liga and now he's playing at Serie A, so has a bit more to his game in terms of his maturity. You've got another young player at Sporting Lisbon, Pedro Conchalves, I feel like is how you pronounce it, so hopefully I haven't butchered that name. He's had a fantastic season, scored, I believe, 25 goals. So he's an interesting one because he scores a lot of goals, but can play as a centre mid, number 10, and can play on the right as well. But I've seen him play out. For me, when he plays on the right, it's more like on a flat four rather than being a winger or someone with that kind of pace or intensity when he plays. So for me, he doesn't quite fit into that role. And that would be my question marks regarding all three players. DePaul, Aouar, and Conchalves would be, can they defend as well as midfielders? It's all good about being attacking and going for all of these amazing runs during the game. But in every club team, you know you have to be industrial. You need to make sure you're compact as a midfield and make sure you work together. So if a player's having all of these amazing runs, it might destroy the midfield. So excuse me. So these three players, as talented as they are, I just don't see them being Klopp type of signings, if I'm honest with you. Unless Klopp has a different perspective or different approach next season where we might play like a 4-2-3-1, then these guys will be perfect to play as a number 10. So I guess some interesting names there, but those would be the type of players that I'd look into. And then attackers. So this is an interesting one because I think the popular names for me are unrealistic, unfortunately. So I'll just say how it is. Harry Kane for me looks destined to go to Man City, so that's not a target for Liverpool. Haaland for me, unless someone bids silly money this summer, I don't see him leaving Dortmund. And I can see most teams actually going for him next summer, where he's got his release clause of 60 odd million. So that would be a bit more realistic for attaining him next year. Mbappe, who seems to be interested in a new project. So I'm not sure if he'll move right now. I don't think it's realistic. I love the player. I think he's a generational talent, but financially, Liverpool just can't. we can't cope with those demands in terms of his weekly salary, the transfer fee, and everything that comes along with it. I just don't think it's the model that Liverpool go with at this stage. So yeah, as much as I would love to see Mbappe in a Liverpool shirt, I just don't see it. So the targets have to be a bit more realistic, in my opinion, a bit more looking for players that maybe one for the future, young talents that can come to the squad and grow and learn playing with other attackers like Mane, Salah, and Firmino, or players that have reached a certain stage at that club and maybe a move abroad is a right step in their career right now. So I'll mention a few names that I've listed. So the popular one that we've probably seen all year is Patson Daka. Now, for me, decent player. My only question with Daka is he gets you excuse me, he gets you goals, especially around the penalty box. But what else does he offer to the team? Because I feel like to be an attacker in a Liverpool team, you can't be one-dimensional. You need to be able to attack in the channels, which I think he does, but he doesn't do it to huge strides, in my opinion. And he needs to have a bit of versatility. If you're just a typical number 9, I don't know. I just don't see that happening within the squad. And I've got a few other number 9s here listed. So you've got Aouar, who plays for Celtic. For me, he looks good because slightly different, where he's actually quite good with his hold-up play and likes to bring other people in, so he can drop deep a little bit and then play in Mane and Salah if he was leading the line. So slightly different to Patson Daka, where Patson Daka attacked in the forefront and sort of looked for that ball to get a 6-yard goal, for example. Whereas Aouar does a bit of both. So he would be an interesting option, but could he cut it in the Premier League and playing for a elite club like Liverpool? That's the big question there. Another striker I've got here is Andre Silva for Frankfurt. So James Pearce, I watched one of his interviews on, I believe it was on Kopish. Shout out to Kopish, great Liverpool channel there. And he mentioned that he had a colleague who did this analysis of strikers in terms of statistics, and that's how FSG recruit a lot of their players. And Andre Silva was actually one of those players, and I've seen him play for Milan and Porto. Good finisher in terms of technical ability, but for me, he doesn't bring anything else to the team. So unless he was going to be number 1 choice, I don't see that type of signing happening, if I'm honest with you. Another player I've been linked to quite recently is Vlahovic, who plays for Fiorentina. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of him in live action. I've only seen a few clips on YouTube, but he looks all right to me. I'm normally quite good when I watch these sort of compilations. Do get a sniff out the type of players they are, and then if they would do well. I just don't see it. Might get a bit of heat regarding that comment there, but he looks decent. But I don't feel like he's anything amazing that Liverpool should be going over, making big transfer bids regarding the player. Yeah, not for me. unfortunately. But there's one player I quite like, is Malan, who plays for PS. Excuse me, plays for PSV. So actually, was a youngster at Arsenal, but decided to leave as I feel like he realized his path to the first team football was not as straightforward as he would have wanted. So he left to go back to Holland and play first team football, and that's what he's done at PSV, and he's been phenomenal for the last 2-3 years, scoring heavy amounts of goals. Great player in terms of leads the line very well, can drop deep as well, so has good football IQ, can actually play a bit, and loves to attack the channels, and has abundance of pace, and scores all types of goals, headers, long shots, tap-ins, you name it. So that would be the type of striker that I'd like to sign, and I feel like he would fit the profile. Question would be, if he came to the Premier League, could he cope with that level? I feel like in my head he's quite similar to Timo Werner, where similar style of player actually, both of them, but playing in a different league and coming to the Premier League is completely a different ball game. So can he cope with the intensity, the aggression of the Premier League, and playing for a team like Liverpool, where you're not the main man as such, but we play as a team, we attack as a team, and we defend as a team. So the dynamics, can he adjust to that sort of tactics that we have? I think he has the quality, but it's not guaranteed. So there's always a question mark regarding that. Sticking to strikers in Holland, there's another striker that I quite like the look of, is Boadu, who plays for AZ Alkmaar. Striker, can also play on the left wing. 19 years old, has huge potential. So I feel like maybe a bit too soon to move to a big club at this stage, but I feel like keep that name in your mind, because I feel like in the next few years we will be hearing a lot about him. I feel like he will be scoring a lot of goals and building a lot of tension across Europe. So he's definitely one for the future there. So those are my number 9 type of players that I would get. Now, it's not actually straightforward regarding which type of player we would get, because if we were to get a traditional number 9, it would have to be where we change our tactics a little bit, and maybe Bobby Firmino doesn't lead the line, which I don't think will be the case. I think Bobby Firmino will be leading the line next year. And it goes along with Mane and Salah, unless one of them leaves the club, which for me, I don't want to see that happen. So let's not put that energy out there. But I feel like we could possibly look at a player that can play on the wings, on either left or right wing, because that's something that we lacked, I feel like, during the phases of our season where, especially when Mane was in poor form, and Salah tends to drift more infield and doesn't really attack the fullback as much as he used to. So Jota was great, where he would come on and make a great impact, but I feel like he's probably better on the left, and has adapted to play in the middle as a striker as well now. So maybe someone who's predominantly plays on the right side but can play on the left. So I'll tell you who my choice would be, and I'll be Rafinha from Leeds United. I feel like he would be a fantastic fit at the club. I think he'll bring flair, creativity, and goals, different types of goals as well, to the squad. So I feel like he would be a great addition. Just imagine, as our 5 attackers, Mane, Salah, Firmino, Rafinha, and Jota. For me, that's just got goals written all over it. So for me, that would be my favorite or my preferred signing. And I don't think he'll command a big fee either. It'll probably be 35 million is what I've read in the media. So who knows? There are other players that I quite like the look of. So Pedro Neto, but I feel like his transfer fee will be really high. You've got Neres, who plays for Ajax, but not sure if he'll leave at this stage, as they've just won the league as well. So he'd only leave, I think, if he was guaranteed first team football, which he wouldn't be at Liverpool. And then you've got Jadon Sancho. So I'd love Jadon Sancho at the club, but I just don't see that happening as well. But you never know, because I feel like he is at that stage now where maybe a move back to the Premier League is on the cards. Me personally, I think he should probably play in the Bundesliga one more year, and then decide next year what step to take. Because I feel like this season he had a slow start, but he ended fantastically with so many goals and assists, and helped Dortmund qualify for the Champions League. So I feel like his development isn't finished. He's still not the end product there, so he's got plenty to improve on in terms of his consistency. And I feel like playing with Haaland as well will only help that. So he's at a team where he's loved, and he will play pretty much every week. So that's probably the right stage for him. However, if a club like United comes and they offer him first team football, it might sway his decision there. Or if Liverpool were to sell one of their attackers, like Mane or Salah, which let's hope that doesn't happen, then Sancho would be more of a realistic target in comparison to Mbappe or Haaland, due to the financial packages that we would have to offer the players. So yeah, for me, I don't see Sancho happening. I'd love for it to happen. If I was to choose any right wing, I'd probably go for Sancho. But being really impressed with Rafinha, for me, I feel like that is the type of player that I'd like to go for. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. So that's my little overview of transfer targets that I'd like to see at the club. A couple other mentions actually. So when we were speaking about midfielders earlier, I think Curtis Jones will have a big role to play next season. And because he's accustomed himself so well this year, I don't. If there was any plans to buy an attacking midfielder, I think due to his form, that's probably gone out the window. So if we were, because last year apparently we were quite heavily linked with Aouar, so I would feel like if we signed a player like Aouar, it might hinder the development of Curtis Jones. And for me, I've been very impressed with Curtis Jones this year. So I don't see an attacking midfielder coming. So if it was my prediction, I think Liverpool would sell. Well, Gini's gone, unfortunately, and we would sell Naby Keita. And the two players I like to see at the club would be Bissouma and Neuhaus. If I had to choose it, I really like Tielemans, but I just don't see that being realistic due to transfer fee. So I think Neuhaus would command a less transfer fee, but has huge potential to grow as well. So that'd be my prediction in terms of our midfield. Centre back, pretty much we discussed earlier, Konate will probably be the guy that comes in, and unfortunately, Kabak either goes back to Schalke, who unfortunately are relegated, or Michael Edwards might just do his magic and put him in the frame to join Red Bull Leipzig. So to try and get the deal with Konate, we might just say, look, we've got Kabak here, so why you just take him as your option? And he's actually been linked to Red Bull Leipzig, so from some strange reason, it's all connecting in regards to that move. So I can see that happening for Kabak there. I would have preferred to have seen Nico Williams go out on loan and gain some experience, but I think he will be here next season. One player I've been impressed with in terms of our loan players is Harvey Elliot. So Harvey Elliot is a tricky one because I feel like a loan move would be good for his development, but a loan move to a Premier League club, I would say. But he's had such a great season at Blackburn Rovers. I feel like I'd love to have him back in the squad and be our potential sixth choice attacker because I don't see Shaqiri staying at the club. So he might actually be a natural replacement for Shaqiri because Shaqiri plays on the right hand side and can play as a number 10, and Harvey Elliot can do the same role. So we might have a ready-made replacement, Harvey Elliot, there, so we don't have to spend any money in in the transfer market. So for me, in terms of attacking position, yeah, I'd say that would happen. If we were to sign Rafinha, for example, I can see Jota playing more centrally next year, and he's done a good job, to be fair, this season. So I wouldn't put past that in terms of Klopp's plans for Jota next season. Or if Klopp wanted to go for number 9 instead, then I'd go for Marlon from PSV. I feel like he ticks all the boxes there. And yeah, so just to pretty much wrap up, I think our starting lineup will pretty much be the same when everyone's fit. So that would consist of Alisson as our goalkeeper, Robertson, Van Dijk. I still think Gomez will be first choice, but in time, I think Konate might displace him. Trent Alexander on the right-hand side. Then you got Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, and then Mane, Firmino, Salah. So for me, that would be the main lineup. Our second 11 will be, for me, Kelleher will be in goal. You've got Tsimikas, and then you've got Konate, Matip, Nico Williams, and then if my transfer targets came to fruition, I'd say Bissouma, Jones, and Newhouse. So I feel like that midfield would actually have a good balance. So that would be fantastic, I think, for our backup next season. Plenty of quality there, different types of players, but a good balance at the same time. And then my front three would be Rafinha, who I know predominantly plays on the left, but to balance out this sort of B team that I have here, Rafinha on the left, Jota in the middle, and Harvey Elliot on the right-hand side. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that, because I think we're all expecting big name signings, but I feel like that's not been the Liverpool approach, especially since FSG has been here and even since Klopp has been here. So I feel like it's important to identify players with the right qualities. So Bissouma would pretty much replace Gini Wijnaldum in terms of what he brings to the team. Newhouse would just bring an extra creative spark within our midfield. Konate would bring great presence and great pace to the back line. We can play high up as well, which we haven't been able to do without Van Dijk and Gomez in the course of the season. And you've got Rafinha, who can play on the left or on the right. Jota is improving, had a great season and was hindered a little bit due to his injury there. You got a young player, Harvey Elliot, who can come on and play with freedom and not with a lot of pressure. So I felt that team would have a great balance. And then I'd have a third choice keeper. Phillips, I'd keep Phillips. I wouldn't sell Phillips. I think he's shown such great reliability this year. And he's actually improved so much. So I feel like you can't rule it out in terms of his place in the team. Milner, I believe, is his last year at the club in terms of his contract. So pretty much a bit part player, but I feel like an important figure to have in your squad. And I can see Oxlade-Chamberlain staying at the club. And so the players that I feel like would be leaving are possibly Adrian, depending who the recruit for our third choice. Kabak, who goes back to his parent club in Schalke. Gini Wijnaldum, who's strongly linked to Bayern Munich and Barcelona right now. Shaq, who's linked to a move to Sevilla. And for me, Origi would have to leave as well. Bring some fresh blood into the team. So yeah, so that pretty much wraps up the episode. Let me know what you guys think in terms of my way of thinking or the targets that I've mentioned. Have I missed anyone that you'd like for me to discuss or speak about in more detail? or do I see them fitting into our squad? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like me to do a part 2, happy to do another episode. Love talking about transfers, so we can do this all day. But thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Take care, and I shall see you guys very soon. Thank you.